Welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Charlie Taylor. I'm one of the CE consultants at KDLA. So I'll be facilitating the webinar and just making sure everything goes okay today. Our presenters are Candace Clark and Pamela Jane. They're here from the Boone County Public Library, and we want to welcome them and thank them for their time, taking the time out to do this and share this presentation with us. They're going to be speaking about low-cost outreach ideas for a big impact. So I'll turn over the program to them in just 1 second. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping first. First of all, if you have any technical issues, if you have any issues with the sound or slides or anything, go ahead and chat those in, and I'll help you out with that. At the end of the presentation, you'll be able to download your own copy of these slides. So I sent out the handout earlier that has the small version where you can take notes. If you want to download the full-size slides at the end, you can do that. You'll be able to download those as a PDF. And I'll also be sending out a follow-up email this afternoon that will have your certificate of attendance and a link to a survey that we would appreciate you filling out for us and giving us your thoughts and opinions about today's training as well as ideas for future trainings. And feel free to go ahead and chat in any questions. I think Candace and Pamela, are you okay with taking questions as we go, or do you want to wait till the end?
Oh, I'd rather take questions as we go.
Yeah, that makes sense. Great. So feel free to chat in questions for these ladies. And I think that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and mute my phone and turn it over to you all.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for joining us today for low-cost outreach ideas for a big impact. I'm Candace. I work on the Community Center on Wheels. That's our outreach vehicle at the Boone County Public Library. And I get to do story times for preschoolers, and I get to go to community stops where we see all ages. And every once in a while, I get the treat of getting to help out with programs in-house where I get to, just for a change of pace. So.
And I am Pamela Jane. I am a youth services librarian at our Florence location. I used to work at Maine, so Candace and I were in the same building, got to do a lot of fun stuff together. And then I also help out with some outreach with the middle and high schools.
All righty, let's see here. Why is outreach important? Well, as you can see, that little kitty, if he were working properly, would be reaching and reaching and reaching for that cord, just trying to get to it. So why is it so important to reach outside of the building? Well, you're going to see people and interact with them and offer them things that you might not otherwise be able to do if you're waiting for them to come into the building with you. Should I do my apple story? Or? Okay. I've got a little apple story just to demonstrate it. Say you have a magnificent apple tree. You know that apples are nourishing. You know they're a delicious treat. And they also make great still life subjects for the artists out there. And I know all this, and my neighbors know all this because I've been able to share those apples with them because they're right next door to me. People walking by know how awesome these apples are because I can say, hey, want one of these apples? Sure. But what about the people on the other side of the hill? The ones who love apples but don't know where to find them? Or the ones who are not even aware of the joys that apples can bring into your life? I could try throwing an apple really far, but my arm's not that good. And on top of that, maybe apples are not the thing you're looking for. Maybe you're looking for pears, but I don't know that until I get a chance to talk to you. So when we get out of the building, we get to meet new people, we get to learn what their needs and wants are, and at the same time, we can share with them all the great things we have to offer as a library.
So part of that, we were doing outreach to our community stops. We were doing tabling events. We were doing school outreach. And we just wanted to find ways, like simple ways and inexpensive ways, to kind of jazz that up to reach more people and to make us look a little more interesting. So we're going to talk about ideas that you can use at community stops, at tabling events, and school outreach. So first we're going to talk about community stops.
This is our outreach vehicle, the Community Center on Wheels. It was purchased several years ago with funds from a grant and in partnership with other community organizations, the Health Department, Success by Six, the Parks Department. Since then, the library has taken over taking care of maintenance and using it for programming throughout the county. We go to, there we go, purchased with grant money by the Department of Health and Human Services in 2004. We do go to around 40 child care centers in a month's time. That includes preschools. We also go to some after-school programs, and we visit some low-income housing areas in the county. We go to 6 different neighborhoods once a month each. We're there from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock on the same day in the same week so that they know when to expect us. And we offer programming and material checkouts while we're there. This is what it looks like inside the back of the bus. I like to call it the classroom space because there's room for people to be. Our materials are on shelves at the front of the bus. When we're at a community stop, like the picture on the left-hand side, people are standing up, moving around. We've got materials that we use as giveaways, things that have been withdrawn or donated, so that everybody can leave the bus with reading material, whether their account is in good standing or not. And we are also offering activities that will hopefully engage a range of ages and interests. So you can see the table is set up in that picture, but they're also working on the counter at different things. We have some displays on the wall. And the picture on the right, we're doing story time, where we'll go to a location and the class will come out to the bus. The children will have a chance to check out materials, and then they'll come in the back. We'll have our story time program, and then they'll gather up and go back inside to the classroom, and we'll do it again the next month. We currently have 6 community stops, and when we pick them, we look at what type of housing there is, whether our vehicle can fit in the community in a safe spot for when people come to us. And we try to hit a few different areas in the county, so we're not just concentrated on one side or one end, so we can see a wider range of families.
Candace talked about this a little bit before we started programming at community stops. Whoever came on the bus, like that's what we call it, the cow is the bus. Whoever comes on the bus would be allowed to pick one book and one magazine to keep, regardless of whether or not they had a library card or if their card was in good standing. We also had a lot of our promotional material out so they could get a color-changing pencil, coloring pages, newsletters, that kind of thing. There is the area where they can check out items if they have their card, and the only programming we were really doing was during the summer. So we would have jump ropes and bubbles and things outside for visitors to use. So why did we want to add programming, and what did we kind of need to think about before we started? We love this GIF. Yeah. So you have to think, this is basically our goal. We want those kids at those stops to come running when they see us. We want them excited to be on the bus, to interact with us, to be excited about the library. We also thought about incorporating STEM into our programming, thinking that those tend to be more high interest with kids and teens. So we thought about introducing science into the programming. But we also had to think about weather and other concerns. So with that, you never know what's going to happen. So it could be a sunny day, it could be a rainy day, it could be freezing and have snow on the ground, there could be sharks falling from the sky.
Lots of sharks. You
just never know what kind of day you're going to have, and you just have to be prepared for it. So if you had something that you thought you could do outside, make sure you have an alternate plan in case it does rain or snow. So we're going to talk a little bit about the programs that we brought onto the community stops. These can be easily done without a vehicle, an outreach vehicle. You could do them at parks or in malls wherever. These are just some ideas that we have. So if you have any other ideas or any questions about these, please put them into the chat box and we will answer them. And we are always glad to hear any ideas that you have.
Two of our very fun and I think quite successful programming ideas involve squash. Gourd decorating. This year what we did was we talked to a local pumpkin patch farm, and the actual word escapes me at the moment, but I think you know what I mean, and got a great deal on bushels of the little gourds that look like little tiny orange pumpkins. And then, so we took a big container of gourds, and we took some permanent markers and set them out on a table, and we were lucky with some really beautiful weather this fall, so throughout the month of October we were able to do a lot of this outside and just let each person who came to us at a community stop, they got to have a gourd that they could decorate in any way that they would like. One of the great things about that is you get your regulars, as I'll call them. They'll come and do the activity, and they run home, and on the way they are telling and showing everyone this little gourd that they've decorated, and it brought new faces to us. They came out and they said, we always wondered what this was, and so you get to talk about the library, and you get to talk about when you're going to be there and what you can offer, and then they get to go home with something, and everybody has a really good experience with it. So the kids got to decorate gourds this year. In the past, we've done pumpkin bowling, where we purchased some small pumpkins, like the baking pumpkins, and we used an outdoor foam bowling pin set, and we would set them out on the lawn or on the sidewalk where we were parked, and the kids would take that pumpkin and use it like a bowling ball and knock down the pins. It's really great if you can get the kids excited enough to want to help out with resetting the pins, because that can be a little rough on your back after a while. But kids, we've had a lot of fun with that. Parents getting excited, seeing the kids so pleased with it, and even giving it a few tosses themselves. And the pumpkins hold up fairly well. We usually purchase 3 or 4 to try to get us through the month, and that usually we do really well with that. We haven't had too many just smashed to bits or anything like that.
And I will say, with the pumpkin bowling, that was the first time we tried that anywhere within our library system. And then since then, people have actually adapted this for use in their own programming in-house as well. Screaming balloons. There is a link on here to Steve Spangler so that you can hear the annoying sound that it makes. But it's awesome. So you have just a balloon and a hex nut. You just go to your local hardware store and you just buy like the 100-pack of hex nuts. And once the balloon is blown up and you have the hex nut inside, once you start spinning the balloon, the hex nut inside will rub against the balloon and it makes this noise. An annoying noise. I keep saying this because if you do it, it may drive you crazy, and so I'm warning you ahead of time. I've done this at the community stop. We pre-made all the balloons. We had a ton of volunteers, so we had them just pre-make balloons and put them in crates for us to carry along. These can also be adapted for science projects that you need, for any sort of festivals or tabling events. Be prepared, if you have the kids blow the balloons up themselves, that you'll be touching a lot of kid spit. Just be prepared, have some hand sanitizer available. I did this actually at a tabling event at a school, and I was surprised. The parents were actually there, and I had to still tie, like, not all of the balloons. None of the parents knew how to actually tie the balloons off. So I had to touch a lot of spit. It was gross. But a fun, interesting thing. Again, it's one of those things where once they get out into their own communities and are walking home, they show everybody, and then everybody wants their own.
Mm-hmm. The shredded book contest was a really fun activity for the kids because they get to show off their book smarts. It's geared toward younger kids, but depending on how you set it up, everybody may be interested in it. You'll look for some books that have been withdrawn, and they'll have recognizable characters, and you cut them up into little bits and purchase some tumblers from the dollar store, the same kind that you might use to make a gift for a grandma, grandpa, auntie with pictures of memorable moments, things like that. This time you just fill it with the shredded book pieces and set it all up, and the kids can come through and tell you what they think the book, who they think the character is, what book they might think it's from. You can give them a prize for it, or maybe they're just thrilled that they did it on their own, but they really like the candy if you've got that. Sorry, I'm just checking to see if we need to, you got it?
Our sound has cut out.
Oh, no!
So who can still hear us? Could you please just respond in the chat thing so we can figure out who can hear and who can't?
Okay. Okie dokie. Well, that's good news for most of you.
Yes. Okay. We're going to continue on. If you still can't hear us, just let us know. Charlie will try and figure out why it's cutting out on you.
Okie dokie. So we set these tumblers up on the counter, and as the kids came in and got their giveaway materials, it gives you a chance to talk to them. You can ask them about their favorite books and their favorite characters, promote the literacy aspect there. And again, they really like the idea of being able to show off what they know. The other thing is they're going to ask you if they can keep these. So be prepared with a few quick, clever answers as to why you need to hold on to them because they may be looking for them. Although you could also turn it into a drawing where at the end of whatever period you're using them for, anybody who's made a guess, all the names go into a pot and you pull out winners, and maybe they could take a souvenir with them.
So we did a bit with 3D glasses. So we just purchased some 3D glasses in bulk on Amazon. There are also ways to make your own that are sort of complicated, but if you would like to take that on, you're more than welcome to. And then we just printed pictures off that work with 3D glasses. Really, if you just Google image search 3D images, those would work with the 3D glasses just fine. We also have in our collection some books that have 3D images in them, so we also had those on display for the kids to look at too. So it gives you an opportunity to explain why the 3D glasses work, why your brain messes with the image to make it look 3D, so it's kind of a fun way to introduce some science concepts. Insta Snow. How many of you have heard of Insta Snow or used it before? Anybody? You can just maybe, no? Okay. So Insta Snow is basically a polymer where if you add water to it, it will expand and puff up and look kind of like snow. Yes, Debbie, kids love this stuff.
Yes, they do.
What we did was we actually put the amounts into sandwich bags and prepared them beforehand with the Insta Snow powder, and then had water and a tablespoon available at the stops. So the kids actually got to add the water in to see the snow puff up. I will say, if you are preparing it and using sandwich bags, use the sandwich bag size. If you use anything smaller, it's going to look like you're dealing drugs. Because it's like a white powder, it's going to look kind of suspicious.
That's not why you want them to come and see you.
So the great thing about this is that they can take it home, they can let it dry out, and then they can do it again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really fun, really interesting. Every kid that I've used it with has loved it and was amazed. I even had, at one stop, the kid had gone home, the parent came back up and wanted to have a bag for herself because she was so amazed with the stuff.
One more thing about the Insta Snow. The first time we did this was last spring, I think, last winter, last spring, and we're doing it again this month, and multiple kids have come on the bus saying, "Oh, yes, this was our favorite thing from last year." So it's something that you can repeat, and they will not be disappointed to see it again.
Mini museums. So we were in our collection department. They were getting books, a lot of the nonfiction books, with these like little pieces that go along with the theme of the book. So like shark teeth, mini fossils, that kind of thing. And we weren't including those in once they get put into the collection. So they just had kind of a bin of stuff that they had. And so I took it and used it in these programs. So we got just those little display boxes that you can get on Amazon. It was, I think, like $5 a piece. We bought 2 of them. And we just put like the shark teeth in there or the fossils. We're eventually going to use the ones that came with the owl pellets at some point. But we just laid those out, had magnifying glasses there so the kids could explore and kind of look at them and look at the books and compare and contrast how they looked. There's also rock and mineral kits that you can purchase or get sometimes at conferences for free. These tend to run about $8 to $10 if you wanted to purchase on Amazon. But we had the magnifying glasses out there. They had the identification keys. When we did this, it happened to coincide with when a lot of the kids were learning about rocks and minerals, so they were able to actually identify things without looking at the sheet. So it was a really cool way to tie that back into their school. We also purchased a pocket microscope. It was, I think now they're about $10 to $12. And then we purchased some slides. We've used this, I think, 7 or 8 times now, not just at community stops, but in-house and at other outreach things. It's a little difficult sometimes to get it to focus, but once you get it there, the kids absolutely love it. It's sometimes for especially the younger kids, it's the first time they've interacted with a microscope, so you're kind of giving them a step up in school too, being able to interact with something they haven't seen yet. The catapults, this is one of the kids' favorite things to do as well. There are 2 ways you can do this. You can either pre-make catapults and have the kids like do target practice, so they have to figure out like how far back from the target they need to be, how hard they have to actually put the spoon back in order for it to fly as far, or you can just have bags kind of set up with a variety of supplies, and the kids have to create something with just those supplies. So in the picture, that's what I did, is I had bags prepared with a couple rubber bands, a piece of string, a spoon, and a cup, and then I said you could have 3 pieces of like 2-inch pieces of tape, and that's all you could use. So they had to figure out, using just those supplies, how to make a catapult, and then we had a target they had to reach with that. So just a couple of different ways to put something together. And these are often like craft supplies that we have extras of that were used in other programs that we kind of need to get rid of. Just a fun way to use supplies you already have.
Grow your own beans. This was a lot of fun, and it's really, really inexpensive. For the cost of some Ziploc baggies and paper towels and beans, you can do this till the cows come home. The way that we set this up, we started planting the beans, so to speak, about a week before, or well, probably about 2 weeks before the first time we were going to be showing them to the kids. And so you just take your Ziploc bag, you put in a paper towel, you lay your bean on the paper towel, put a few sprays of water so the paper towel's just damp, and zip it up, and you've got a little portable greenhouse there for your bean. They'll start to sprout. Well, you can read the seed package and see when they're going to sprout, but they generally would start to sprout about a week after planting. So I put dates on each bag for what was planted, and by starting a few weeks before you go, you have examples and the kids can see the growth of the bean plant. We also provided bean charts, the growth charts, so the kids could track their scientific observations. You can talk to the kids about what do you think this is going to need to grow, where do you think it'll grow best, that kind of thing. What I really, really enjoyed about this activity was it was introducing gardening or plant growth in general to a lot of kids, it was an experience that I think some of them had never had before. We had questions like, is that where the plant hatches? Can I just take the one that's, can I take the one that's already grown? This one isn't a plant. And you'd explain to them that it will become a plant, that kind of thing. So they got to see some of that biological science going on in real time, firsthand. We encouraged them to plant their bean plants after they started to sprout roots, that kind of thing. And kids came back and gave us updates on their agricultural endeavors.
So, dot marker painting. I actually did this first as a part of a pointillism program that I did in-house. And I saw how much the kids loved it, and I thought, well, this is an easy, simple thing that we can do at our stops. So what we do is we get a big piece of butcher paper. We put an image on there. So we do an outline of an image, either freehand. I use a projector and just outline what's on the screen of my computer because I'm not a good artist. And then we just get those dot markers or the bingo dot things, either one, and we just let the kids do what they do. So they just had to work together as a community and fill in one sheet of paper. So these are two examples of what happened at two different community stops. So you can see kind of the different colors they used, how they decided to work together or not work together. And we got a lot of great different responses and results from this.
Mm-hmm. They really, really had a lot of fun doing it. And then we hung them up in-house, so kids who did get to visit the library got to see them. And tell their neighbors, hey, the picture we made is hanging in the library. If you try to repeat it too soon, they may not be as enamored of it the second time around. So you may want to give this particular activity a few months to breathe before you bring it back. For as much as they love it the first time, at each location, they were not thrilled to be doing it again less than 4 months later when we tried that. So
squishy circuits, I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. There is a link here. St. Thomas, if you look up just St. Thomas Squishy Circuits, you'll find their website. They actually sell a kit of battery packs, LED lights, buzzers, things like that. And you just make this dough. You can make it at home with stuff you have in your pantry. And you can make conductive dough. So it's just basically Play-Doh. If they eat it, it's not going to do anything to them. It's going to taste disgusting. But it won't harm them in any way. You use the dough to actually create a loop with the buzzer and the battery packs and the LED lights. So you're talking to them about how a circuit works, why LED lights work, that kind of thing. The buzzers will get a bit annoying, especially when they try and unhook it and hook it back in, unhook it, hook it back in, because there's no on-off switch on the buzzer, so it either just sits and buzzes the whole time, or they're just constantly taking them apart and putting them back together and making it go buzz, buzz, buzz. So you have to be kind of just keep that in mind, that may happen. You have to talk to them about how to put the LED lights in properly or else they won't light up and why that happens. So it's a lot of good things that you can talk to them about while doing something fun and interesting. Mini motors, we have the website here for you. It's basically you take a battery. There's a specific type of magnet you have to purchase, which could get a little pricey, but we've used this I feel like 1,000,000 times since we first did this. You just take a battery, you have some copper wire that you have to strip a bit to get the copper exposed. You use that wire and you put the magnet on the paper clip and use a paper clip. It'll tell you to use a screw. We found that the paper clips work a lot better. What eventually happens is you get the paper clip to start spinning really fast, and the kids love it. So again, this is another way to talk about circuits and electricity and how that all works by doing something fun and interactive with them.
Changing our programming model to include more of these activities and things that were more engaging for the children in a wider range of ages has been such a positive experience. We're getting great feedback all the time. Kids will come and talk to us, ask what's going to happen next month. Just Tuesday evening, our new schedule now includes a teaser for what they're going to see over the next 6 months, and a young man had picked up a schedule so he could see what was coming up, and he said, "Oh, man, I'm definitely going to be here in June when you have the obstacle course." So it's been a real pleasure to bring more interesting things for all of these community members to participate in and to learn from and contribute to. Just like April at South Point told us, I'm really glad you have all these different activities for us every time you're here. It gives the kids a chance to get to know us, we get a chance to know them, and it gives them just an extra enrichment activity that they may or may not be getting otherwise.
I'd also like to say the community stops before programming, we would tend to see the younger ages, so our preschool, early elementary. Since starting these programs, we now see a lot more of those tween ages, which I know everyone hates that word, but that's the only way, like preteen kids. So those kids who are in grades 3 to 7 are coming on the bus regularly and talking to us and learning more about their library and what we can do for them. So it's been a really great change to see the variety of age groups now that come on the bus.
Absolutely.
So does anybody have any questions about our community stops before we move on? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start talking, but when questions come up, I will stop and answer them. So tabling events. Okay. So for the 3D prints, I just did a Google image search of just 3D images, which I know is not probably the best way, but it got me a few different things. For the stops, are they at apartment complexes, etc.?
It's a combination of apartment complexes and mobile home communities. Got probably split about half and half down the middle there, as far as three of our communities are, I think it's three apartment complexes and 3 mobile home communities. Yes.
So, okay, tabling events. I'm sure we're all familiar with these. We tend to use them for promotional reasons. We have newsletters, program cards, information, promotional items. We have actually negotiated with some of our middle schools and high schools to allow us to come in once a month during lunchtime, and the kids are allowed to actually interact with us and find out more about the library. At the particular middle school that I've recently just gone to, the kids are always excited to see me. They always know that they're getting a pencil, because some of them, that's all they care about. But I also have those teens, and quite a few of them, who stop and ask me questions about the programs that we're having, wants the newsletter, wants all of our program cards that we have made for teens, want to know more about what we're offering for them after school. So it's a great way to make that connection to those kids we're not necessarily seeing.
And I just want to add to that, I got to cover a freshman high school orientation night, and middle schoolers, incoming freshmen, were coming up to me and asking, are they gonna have a table like they did at lunch in middle school? So there's an impact being made. The kids are interested. They develop those relationships, and they really do want to see more of us.
So here's kind of what the setup looks like at our lunches. Some of the schools have a stage that we have to set up on, which this one is an example of that. We have our tablecloth with our name on it. This is just kind of the setup for all of our stuff, our promotional materials and everything. So we needed a way to draw more people to our tables. With 6th graders, they don't care. They will come up regardless. It's more those older middle schoolers and in high school that we tend to have some issues with getting them to come up to and even talk to us. And we also wanted to do something other than just a giveaway. And it needed to be something simple and easy so that they could come up to the table, interact with us, and then they can go and finish up lunch or go to their gym time. So here's some examples of things that we've done with our tabling events. So the Screaming Balloons, like I mentioned before, we were asked to help with a science night. So we were given a table and we had to have some science-related stuff available for them to interact with. I had the Screaming Balloons, which again, lots of kids fit. But I also had this hand model available for them to also play with, which I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen on Pinterest and online. It's basically just straws, some string, and beads. And what you do is you pull on the bottom, like where your wrist would be, and the hand will move together like a fist. So they can learn about how tendons work and how your fingers work, where the joints are, why the joints are where they are, for your hand to actually work appropriately. Another thing is having these brain hats. There is a website, and if you're interested in that, I can send that to you. You just print this on some cardstock, and the kids can put it together, and they learn about the different parts of the brain, and it tells them what actually is being controlled by that part of the brain. We've also created a gingerbread guessing game. This one is our teen one. Recently there was a children's one that was put together about picture book characters. These are teen book characters. So we dressed up the gingerbread people as characters from books. Again, something you've probably seen on Pinterest or online already. And then they had to guess them correctly to win. So we had like one prize. Everybody had an opportunity from all of our tabling events and in-house to guess and fill out this information, and then we drew a winner from the people who answered all of them correctly. So for some of them it was really difficult, for others it wasn't. It all just kind of depended on what they were familiar with. Sometimes we gave them little hints because some of them just didn't recognize them. But a lot of the things we tried to do were very popular things or characters that they were reading about in school, so they should hopefully recognize them. And we've also taken this out on the community stops as well. Someone in our staff has also put together some of these What Book Am I? So it's just a little piece of the book cover, and they have to guess which book it's from. So these are just some examples. I don't know if any of you can just recognize those off the top of your head, but we took our teen titles, middle and high school titles, again, popular books that they should hopefully have recognized, and asked them to try and guess what it is. So that first one is The Lightning Thief, and the second one is Legend, in case you were wondering. Book quotes, you just had to match the book quote to the book. This was for a specific middle school and has to do with the books that they were actually learning about and reading in class. So again, something that they should be able to do quickly and recognize, but also reinforces something that they're learning in school is great. But this could be, again, any popular teen book, and there was no requirement for them to actually get it right to get a prize. It was more, you just have to do this for us.
Everyone walks away a winner.
Yes. Again, match the protagonist or antagonist to the book, things that they should know or hopefully are learning about. So that's kind of our tabling events and how we've worked that into our school outreach. Any questions? And then I saw that Angela's interested for the Brain Hat site, so I will send that to you. So the prizes that we hand out are our promotional stuff that we would be giving away anyway. So the color-changing pencils that we have. Some schools will allow us to bring candy, so we'll get the cheapest candy we can to hand out to them. Sometimes our promotional department will have leftovers from things that they use with the adults. So we've had Post-it packs that we've given out, pens, highlighters, all kinds of different things. So we worked with our promotional department, let them know what we were trying to do, and gave them stuff with our name on it so that they hopefully will remember our name and our website to come back to. But again, it could be just little things like candy or erasers or things from Oriental Trading that come in bulk for like $2. Anything really to kind of just get them up there and interacting with you. Okay, so we'll move on to our other simple outreach ideas. I feel like I'm talking a lot.
I'm sorry. No, you're okay.
So lunch book groups, we've done this at some of our middle schools, not so much our high schools at this point. We've done, during lunchtime, they have to come to the library with their lunch, and then we just discuss some books that they're reading. We don't assign a book, just because the way they stagger their lunches, sometimes in certain grades, you would only get maybe 2 or 3 kids, and then like 15 minutes later, another group of 2 or 3 kids would show up, and so it didn't really work out for us to have an assigned book for them all to talk about at the same time because it just wasn't going to work. So we just do kind of a general, here are what books are you reading right now? Give us a little information about it. Don't ruin the ending. But make sure that you're talking about books and recommending them to your fellow readers. So. Something else that we've been working on and some teachers have approached me about is helping them come up with fun STEM ideas to use in their classrooms. So one thing I did, there is a makerspace associated with our school system here in our county, and I do some work with them putting together some programs for them. And this picture is of a newspaper Geodesic Dome program that we did. We actually, with this program, and this is a great one you can do in-house too, I've actually done this in-house, they split up into 2 teams. They decided boys versus girls, because that's how they are. And I will say only the girls got it actually figured out and put together. But they were given the instructions, they were shown videos, they had access to the videos on how to make it, and they had to work together as a team to put it to try and figure out how it's going to work. So we talked a little bit at first about what geodesic domes are, why they're useful, when they were popular, why they tend to be stronger than most. We talked about triangles and things like that. And then I made them work together in teams. They had to communicate, figure out what they were going to do. If something messed up, they had to start all over. So a teacher had seen how excited the kids were and just kind of wanted to work with me about what other ideas that we had or had seen in other places that they could possibly use in their own classrooms. So just another kind of way to think about how you're doing your outreach and who you're targeting. We've also started helping with after-school clubs. The biggest one we've been doing has been with our middle schools, but this is something you could actually approach your elementary schools with as well. Coding Club. We use Code.org and Code Academy. None of us who are running coding clubs for schools are experts in coding. I have some experience with coding in HTML and CSS. I've worked a little in JavaScript. But that's about it. I'm not a professional. So we've utilized these websites, Code.org and Code Academy, to help those students learn how to code and get exposure in coding. So So it's all about self-directed learning. We don't teach lessons in the after-school clubs. The kids are set up. They go through what lessons they want to go through. If they want to do something that's similar to Scratch, they're more than welcome to do that. If they want to go to Code Academy and learn how to actually code in JavaScript or HTML or Ruby, that's up to them. They get to choose what they want to do. It's all about exposure and getting them to know what is out there and what they can do. So the first one that we usually introduce them to is code.org. This is not how it looks like so much anymore. This is an older picture, but it's generally the same. We start them with the Write Your First Computer program. It usually starts with Angry Birds. There's also now a Star Wars version. There's a Frozen one that they can do. There's all different things that they can work in. And what it is it's a tile, kind of like Lego block programming system, similar to Scratch, where they have to just move which blocks they want over into the general white space to tell the thing what they want it to do. So in this case, they have to tell the bird how to get to the pig. So which blocks do you need to use to get the bird to the pig? Pretty simple. A lot of the kids will do perfectly fine. Some kids will struggle a little bit. So you have to work with them a little one-on-one to say, okay, let's walk through. What does the bird need to do? Does it need to, what's the first step? Does it need to move forward? Okay. So how many times does it need to move forward before we need to do anything? So in this case, they're probably not going to ask you anything because it just needs to move forward twice. But in more complex things, you have to figure out, does it need to turn left? Does it need to turn right? Code Academy is the one where they're actually learning code, and they will be putting together code into the website, and it will give them instant feedback about whether or not it worked. So this is the HTML setup. So on the left-hand side is the explanation for whatever lesson they are learning. So what the tag means, what does it do, why it's important. And then at the bottom, there are instructions for them to do that relates to that lesson. So they have to be very motivated to read the instructions and read the explanation. Most of them do not. So you have to go, when they ask you questions, you say, okay, let's look back at the information they gave you. So what does this do? Where do we need to put it? Where does it usually end up? What do we need to do to get it to work? And they, from there, tend to learn that, yes, they need to look through that first. But Code Academy you'll hit save and submit code, and then it'll tell you if you did it perfectly or if there is an error. And it'll tell you kind of where to expect that error so you can go back into the code and try and fix it with the participant. Success! So this is what we kind of want you to feel like when you're doing these programs, that you're actually doing something that's awesome.
Yeah.
And successful. So we have about 10 minutes. We have our contact information here. Do you guys have any questions for us? And we're also very interested in any ideas that you have or anything that you're doing at your library that we could possibly use here in Boone County too. So we would be happy to hear what you're doing, what you think of our programs, what's going on. If these things are even feasible for you, if they were good ideas, please let us know.
Oh, the grant funding for the cow. I wish I were better versed in that. It happened before my time here began. My understanding of it is that several county organizations got together and they knew about the grant opportunity and applied together, were awarded the funds, they purchased the vehicle. My guess is because we have a microwave and a refrigerator on board that several people were able to have input about the things that they would want on this community center on wheels. And there was a period of time where all those partners had to meet certain commitments for the grant. They had to provide a certain amount of number of programs, log a certain amount of time, and as the years wore on, funding was cut for different positions from some of these organizations, and they started to slowly drop off, and the library has assumed ownership and maintenance of the vehicle. We still do, we're lucky to have the Parks Department has resources very often where they can partner with us to provide programming in tandem, either at preschools a few days a week or sometimes with special events that we do. So that's a nice way that they still stay connected with the Community Center on Wheels. I wish I had more complete information for you, but I don't. But I can find it for you if you'd like.
Jesse has asked about tweens and what success we've had with reaching out and getting more 8 to 12-year-olds in the library. With that, the kids that we see on the bus and the cow are not necessarily also able to get to the library, so that's why we tend to go out there. Our success has been with our science programming, has been really great in getting those 8 to 12-year-olds who are not interested in the library at all. Even in-house, our science programs for that age group are gangbusters. We have usually 30 kids who sign up for those every time we have a science program. So that's something that you could try, is something like that, a STEM-based program, to see what the responses from your community. If that doesn't work, I've also had success with some art programs because a lot of the schools were cutting some of their art programming and parents were just looking for something for their kids to do within that. So things like art around the world type thing or an art club might work. But a lot of it has been engaging them with STEM has been the success for us and our community anyway. That may, like I said, it's a community-based thing, so it may not work, but that's just something you could try. And if your school, if you can get a contact in the school who will let you come to orientation nights or parent-teacher nights, even just for school lunches or something where you can interact with the kids in that age group, that's another way to kind of get ideas and figure out what they're interested in and see if that would work for you.
Squishy circuits were a really big hit with our second, third, fourth grade girls at Community Stop. They spent as much of the full hour as they could at the table with the squishy circuits, having different setups, and it was just really interesting how drawn they were to that particular activity.
Yeah, squishy circuits, if you can do squishy circuits, I would try that. It's lots of fun, and like Candace said, it appeals to boys and girls. We've done that not just as an outreach thing, but also as a in-house program, and I had, I think, almost 45 people in that program, and about 35 of those were the kids, and the rest, about 10, were the adults, their parents. But yeah, just something to think about. And as Debbie said, the grossest thing, the gross out programs work amazingly well. If you need suggestions, I've done several gross out programs where we talked about the digestive system, and so they made quote unquote poop, which I have 2 different ways if you're interested on how to do it. Each time they loved it. So. Yes.
There's also a recipe for poop soap floating around.
Yeah, I have not tried that. We just made regular poop.
Yeah, the soap can be a little more of an involved process. I wouldn't necessarily take that outside of a building.
Yeah. The ideas I have, there's one in particular that you could definitely take out into your community and do. Parents might give you a little funny look, but you can just say it's educational because you have to talk about, you have to mash up your food with your teeth, so we're crushing the crackers that way, and it goes down your esophagus into your stomach, and so we have to add some acid in there because your stomach has hydrochloric acid that breaks down your food, and then your intestines squeeze out all the water, so you have to squeeze out all of the liquid that's in there, and then you end up with a solid piece of stuff.
Oh, sneaky iPad trick. That's very clever.
That's awesome. Yes. Yeah. Anything poop or vomit related really are hits. And really with any age group
Really,
too,
yeah.
but especially with your preteens and middle schoolers. Owl pellets are awesome. I love owl pellets.
Yeah, the mystery.
So any other questions for us? Any ideas? Thank you. Well, thank you guys all for coming. Please email me. Angela, you were the one who wanted the brain hat, correct? If you could just email me, my email is right there, pjane@bcpl.org. I will send that to you as soon as possible.
Okay, this is Charlie again. Thank you, Pamela and Candace, for presenting today and sharing all those great ideas. We were having lots of good laughs here on our end, and we're just really enjoying all your great suggestions.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Anytime. We would love to have you all back. And just a couple of final things here before we close out. You can download your own copy of these slides here. The instructions are there on the left, and the download box is right underneath the instructions. And we will be sending out an email. I saw a question go by about getting a certificate. I'll be sending out an email this afternoon with your certificate attached to that email, as well as a link to a survey. So let us know what you thought about this webinar and what other trainings you'd like to see, other training topics. And I think that's about it. Did you? Okay. I think that's about it on our end. So thank you all so much for attending today and for your great questions and suggestions and everything. And thanks once again to Candace and Pamela. The other thing I was going to say was, yes, this was recorded and will be posted on our archived webinars page within about a week. So please, I'll send out the link to the archived webinars page, and please feel free to share that with your staff, your colleagues, and everyone. Get these great ideas out there. So everybody stay safe and warm during the snowpocalypse.
You do the same. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks.